Welcome to the YCA Career Catalyst. Today we will talk about how you can improve the quality of the videos that you are creating on your own. We'll talk with Wei Wang. Wei began as a Juilliard-trained clarinetist and won the principal clarinetist position in the Albany Symphony. But he kept growing his sideline business of recording his colleagues in both audio and video formats. A few years ago, he started Skillman Music Studio in New York City, where he has recorded musicians like Lang Lang, Midori, Tan Dun, and serving organizations like Juilliard, Young Concert Artists, and Lincoln Center. Wei also has been very active in doing on-location broadcasting and filming. He's done the live streams for Young Concert Artists for several years. He's doing active work for the Albany Symphony throughout this pandemic and a whole host of other clients. Wei does fantastic work and is in high demand here in New York City. I'll be joining Wei for this discussion. As a teenager, I got heavily interested in black and white photography and did a lot of darkroom work. I kept up my interest in cameras over the years and transitioned to digital photography and eventually digital videography. During the pandemic, I've actually spent a lot of time helping people get a little bit further in technology, whether it's helping my board members learn how to use Zoom, talking to young artists about how they can make video recordings at home, or talking to people about very technical levels of what cameras they should buy, how to create a multi-camera shoot, and so forth. As we come out of the pandemic, I'm convinced that every artist will be engaged actively in producing your own videos in the future. Whether you're just simply greeting an audience ahead of a concert, or giving a preview of a performance to come, or actually recording full performances and sharing that with audiences around the world through the internet. People will be doing this for years to come. So I encourage you to have an open mind, get comfortable with technology, and just take one step at a time to improve the quality of what you're creating. During the pandemic, we have all seen a huge increase in online content. A lot of that content was self-produced. Literally people using their laptops, their phones, whatever they could find. I bet there were even people digging out camcorders from 10 years ago to film themselves in their homes. And we saw a whole range of, let's say, just quality that was absolutely terrible to, wow, that looks amazing. That could have been on a Hollywood set. What do you think is the future of artists recording and creating their own video content?
Well, I think that's a very good question, especially during this pandemic. It hit us pretty hard and pretty sudden, so nobody was prepping for it. And especially at the very beginning stage, a lot of artists who knew a little bit about technologies could not even get the gears because everything was sold out. So a lot of them ran to no options but to use a consumer electronics that we have every day, like iPhone or iPad, to record contents. But I think it's inevitable that all the artists must know the basics of self-producing and producing at the highest level they can, the environment allows, because the internet has really taken over, and at least for the past 1 year, that had been the momentum to push the art forward for the moment. So I think all artists must know a little bit about technologies from this point on.
The work you do, bringing in, top level gear, multiple camera shoots, going on location, filming in your studio, that's here to stay. And Wei does YCA's live streaming, he does stuff with Albany Symphony, all kinds of people that organizations will put more money into creating live stream and online content. At the same time, I think there will be a greater expectation of every artist to be contributing their own content. So it could be super famous world-class artist that's creating a little preview video in their home with their own Steinway. But there also is a whole nother group of young upcoming musicians that just don't simply have access yet to a professional studio, hiring a film crew, or working with an organization that has the budget to film that content. So there's, I think, from top to bottom, whether you're a 17-year-old student thinking about applying to a college or a conservatory and you need to create audition tapes, or you're at the very top of your game, Yo-Yo Ma, I think everyone needs to have some understanding of basic recording, doing it themselves, where they're, what equipment they have at their disposal and how to make that equipment work.
Right, absolutely. I think, a lot of times it's not about how expensive the gears are. Their very simple stuff can make your production level much higher. For example, the placement of the mics, the lighting environment, and how I started my career was very weird in a way. I was a clarinetist. I went to Juilliard for performing art, and from college, I started to record audition tapes with my friends. And I continued to do so until really my grad school, and that's where I started to build a professional career on this. But before that, all the gears I had over the years recording my friends were maybe $500 topped.
Yeah.
So again, going back to what I was saying, placements can help a lot of the issues that you may encountering at the moment. Yeah.
I know that a lot of musicians have a fear of technology. I mean, these are artists. These are people that spend their time with wooden instruments, yearning to produce concerts in a space that doesn't use amplification or speakers.
Right.
So my own personal encouragement is, number one, anybody can learn and grow. And if you're at the most basic level, just try to figure out how to get to the next level.
Right.
If you've mastered the basic level and you're ready to investigate using 2 cameras and creating a 2-camera shoot, just focus on that. Or maybe your video is okay, but you'd really like to learn a little bit more about the audio side. Just one step at a time, acquiring the equipment, learning, taking an online course, getting some advice, learning from friends who actually know some of it. I think anybody, whether you're even, sort of an 85-year-old musician or a 13-year-old that is just applying to your first summer music camp, everybody can learn and grow to the next level.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, a lot of people want to get a better sound, at the same time get a better look. Like what you said, take one step at a time. Either worry about the visual look or how it sounds, but don't take 2 steps at a time because they might get too complicated and become discouraging.
Let's say that all you have is a phone and that you're at your home and that's it. That's what you've got. What are the first things that people should be thinking about?
I mean, with the modern phones, they all got very good cameras and actually very good microphones, some of them. On the iPhone lines, at least, it's very good. So I think the 2 things that the individual should be looking at for better production quality, number 1 is the light, right?
Okay.
From the visual perspective, you must have a lot of light in the environment you're shooting because the cameras, unlike our eyes, are not as sensitive. So you must have more light than how you're feeling in this environment. That's number 1. Number 2 would be the noise level. So that seems to be obvious, but a lot of times we sort of like not caring about the AC sound, the HVACs in your home, or maybe your neighbors are flushing the toilet. All these things can cause problems that it won't be solvable in the post-productions. Nevertheless, there might not be even the post-production. So to recap what I just said, you want to have better lighting,
okay,
and a very quiet place to record.
All right, let's take those 2 separately. The lighting first. We'll actually do some show and tell in a little bit, but one can buy without great expense of lights to put in your home. But separate from that, what should they do? Make sure that their face is well lit, put some just lamps that you own in good locations?
Yeah, so I think just for the basics, you have to have a very good front lighting.
Okay.
We call that the key light.
Key light.
So the key light, you want to make sure it's not too much because then it will overexpose your skin tone. But it has to be adequate enough that your cameras are making a great picture out of it. And you want it to avoid too much backlight. For example, if you're facing the inside of your home and behind you it's the window and you're at 12 o'clock when the sunshine is at its most, it might not create a great picture out of it because your key light the luminance on the key light is not as much as the backlight.
The backlight is when there's so much light behind you that the exposure is thrown out of whack because your face is just naturally can't compete with the light coming from outside.
Exactly, and for consumer level electronics, it just does not have enough what's called dynamic ranges to be able to pull the brightness down in the post-productions.
So if you're setting up a home space, the first thing is to figure out what are your lighting challenges.
Right.
And it may be, if your piano is next to a window, You either have to film early morning, late at night, have to film on an overcast day, or you have to make sure you have a window covering that can sort it out. Then you can take existing lights and try to get some really good light on your face. You may want to go to the next level where you spend $50, $100 to get a powerful light that you could just plug in and would actually, like in this studio, give you some real lighting. And then should you think about other things like, do you want any side lighting? Do you want to do anything with the background?
Yeah, I think, you want to keep a very simple background. You don't want to have too many different colors behind you. With what you just said, you have different sources of lighting home. What you want to be doing is you want to sort of try your best to match the colors. We call that Kelvin in color. So some of the home lights we have with the yellow lights is actually at 3200 Kelvin, while the daylights is around 6400 to 7000. But you don't want to mix and match because they will look kind of wacky on the picture unless you know what you're doing and that's the
effect you're looking for.
Yeah, aesthetic you're looking for.
So right, if people don't know, there's something in photography called white balance, which is sort of what's the temperature of the light that you're working with. And any modern light bulb has a number that you just said it was a Kelvin number?
It's a Kelvin number, yeah.
And it could be anywhere from a very pure white light all the way to a very, very yellow light, very warm light, and then everything in between. And probably, you have your own aesthetic when you're buying lights for your living room.
Right.
But it's an important thing to sort of consider the overall look of it. I certainly don't want people to get overwhelmed with technical things or sort of getting too ambitious or complicated. The simple thing is this: whatever you're doing, do a lot of trial runs.
Exactly, yeah.
Set up some lights, use what you have, floor lamps, table lamps. Maybe you buy something, you open this window, you close that window, or the shades on the window. See what it looks like.
Right.
Do a trial run. Maybe you need to record at 9 a.m. because the light is better in the room. Maybe you need to record at 6 p.m. when it's dark. But just by looking and seeing what looks good, you can improve your results without getting too complicated.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Where should they be placing a camera? How should they frame a shot? If it's just a single camera angle.
So if it's just a single camera, I think the very most important thing about composition of your picture, right, is that you leave enough space. You leave enough, we call headrooms, and you leave enough space on the bottom. You don't want to cut off anything that you will regret later, because what's happened is if you know a little bit of the post-production technique, which we'll talk about later, you can simply crop it. Mm-hmm. Right? So and during the pandemic, I've received a lot of cell phone video, for virtual concerts, right? So some of them are made great, even a lot of people even have a green screen at home, but a lot of them, have the problem with the composition of the picture is not great. And I think the most common one is people cut their head off.
Oh,
They're not leaving enough headrooms on the top.
You want to see your whole head.
You want to see your whole head.
You really probably want to see like at least a torso up if you're performing, if not even more. One thing I would definitely recommend is be a consumer of what's out there.
Right.
Look at the videos that people have shot at home. Look at the stuff that's bad and try to, run through a checklist of what makes it not strong or a weak image, and then look at what's good.
Right, exactly.
And this is definitely a place where you can mimic other artists, is when you're trying to frame your shot, get something set up.
Right. I think mimic, that happens in the professional industry too. Many of the award-winning cinematographers never really went to school. They learned it by looking at other masters' work.
And trying to emulate that.
Exactly, yeah.
All right, so now let's switch to sound. As you mentioned already, and we'll talk about phones a little bit more in a minute, the most current expensive models of phones actually have pretty good built-in microphones.
Yes.
How far away do you want to be when you're recording the audio?
Yeah, so that's a very good question, because it really depends on the environment again. So, if you have absolutely no choice but a kind of a noisy environment, then you do want the phones to be closer to the source. Right, so because we call that the signal to noise ratio is better. You have a better signal and less noise.
Right.
But if you have a very quiet room, you can have your phone go out a little bit, just so it capture the entirety of the sound a little bit and avoid the sharp and pinchy sound we have that we try to avoid in classical music.
So now let's talk about some of the basic settings on a phone. Mm-hmm. Current phones, the iPhone 11, iPhone 12, I have a Galaxy S20. These cameras can shoot in 4K video. So just to give a little frame of reference, the DVD when it came out had 480 lines of horizontal resolution.
Right.
Then we had high definition, which is 1,080 lines of vertical resolution.
Right.
4K is, I guess, 4,000 lines of vertical resolution, or 4 times the amount of information that high definition has. Most of the content people are watching, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, if you're watching on a phone, you're watching 1080 resolution.
Exactly.
You might even be watching 720 or something smaller than 1080.
Right.
So filming in 4K has advantages for those individuals who are ready to deal with a larger file size, the complexities of editing, migrating or moving the files from your device, uploading to YouTube, all that kind of activity. So I would actually recommend that those people that aren't technologically savvy just simply set it to 1080 and leave it there.
Exactly. And on your iPhone, they refer to 1080 as HD, basically.
HD.
Yeah.
Right. Or full HD, sometimes it's called, but 4K is always referenced as 4K.
That's right.
So that's the first thing. The second video setting to be aware of is frames per second.
Right.
So what's the standard setting and what do you recommend?
So frames per second differs depending on where you are in the world.
Yep.
The North American standard is a little different than the Asia and the Europe. But since we're in North America, we're just going to talk about the standards here. We are using either the most common ones are 24 frames per second, 30 frames per second, or a 29.
We'll keep it simple. So
we'll keep it simple.
24 frames per second
24.
or 30. There also is 60 frames per second, which again I would say most of the people watching don't need to deal with. Traditional cinema shoots at 24 frames per second.
Correct.
A lot of TV and YouTube content shoots at 30 frames per second. 60 frames per second and higher comes in more when you have action shots and you want to create slow motion effects. So I would encourage most people just to pick 24 frames per second or 30 frames per second and leave it there.
Exactly. And I think if you have the option between 24 and 30, go with the 24. Again, because you'll need less light to produce the same look, and which, as a result, it will have a less noise in your picture. Yeah.
Wei,
Yeah.
let's break out our phones. Me with my Android, you with your iPhone.
All right. Apple versus Android.
So one of the first things I would recommend to anybody that's trying to up their game in self-production is you actually could simply upgrade your phone.
Exactly.
I just got this in December, got it on sale for I think it was $650, and it has some of the best video capabilities of a phone right now. The iPhone I know can be more expensive. It depends what your payment plan is.
You're buying.
But on each of these, on the back, we have 3 lenses is now standard, which means you get a wide angle, a regular, and a zoom.
Exactly, yeah.
And then on the other side, you get another basic camera. And the best of these cameras are actually quite good. They've gotten good in shooting in somewhat low light.
Right.
And the built-in microphone is quite good.
Yeah, like Dan said, all the cameras these days have 3 lenses, which will suit a lot of the environment you're shooting at. If you're shooting at home environment, you don't have enough depth, you don't have the distance between you and the object, you could just use the wide-angle lens.
They also, because they have the front-facing camera and the reverse-facing camera, if you need to do a little video backstage, if you need to do a shout-out for a concert performance, it's just perfect. I mean, you literally can just hold it in your hands, record yourself, and get something very, very good.
Right.
And so the basic investment of updating to a current phone will actually give you a remarkably strong camera. A lot of them now have stabilization built in. So for instance, if you were playing, let's say you were in a rehearsal right before performance, and you ask somebody to get a little shot, and they just walk around slowly, they could actually get a beautiful action shot.
I'm going to do it right now, and I'll have this sync.
You'll send this to me later.
Exactly.
So that's another way that these phones have jumped up in quality. I mean, the basic video features of these phones is rivaling cameras that you would spend $1,000 on.
Yeah, exactly. I think, me being a professional videographer or engineer, most of the times I don't bring my heavy cameras to location. I use my phone to shoot everything I need to do. So yeah, it can be very versatile if you know how to use it well.
I'll pause the discussion with Wei to give a demonstration of what you can do with your phone and some things that you can do to record at home. A few days ago, Randall Gooseby was recording a concert at the Morgan Library and Museum. I was sitting about halfway back in the hall and used my phone to capture both the visual and the audio in the room. You can see the stabilization is pretty good in this opening shot where I'm using the close-up lens. Then I'll give an example of the furthest back lens, the most wide angle, the mid-range lens, and then back to the zoom lens. You may recognize Wei standing off to the side doing the filming for our fancier production. Overall, the phone does quite well. The audio is not bad, especially considering how far back I was in the hall. And if we needed a short clip as a preview on Instagram or Facebook, this would serve very nicely. And again, it's a handheld shot. There was no tripod involved, so it's something that anybody could do. Welcome to our home studio. This is my wife's piano, and she uses it for teaching lessons on Zoom, but also recording some performance videos and some instructional videos. I also use this space to record my own video work for young concert artists. You'll see that we don't have a big space, but we've tried to make it nice. We put some colorful pictures on the wall as a backdrop, and then we've worked to make the lighting good. Here's how the room would look with no special lighting. The first light we got was this floor lamp that can get some light on the pictures on the background, and it also has some flexibility on how bright it is and whether it's more of a yellow color or more of a cool white color. Here's what it looks like as I turn it on. And we can turn it, focus it where we want, and it makes that wall nice. The next thing we did was get some front-facing lights because you really want to light up the foreground. It's nice to have some good lighting in the background, but that's useless if you don't have good lighting in the foreground. We started very small when the pandemic began and bought this small ring light. It has a little tripod, it has a placeholder for a cell phone, and then it just has, I think it's a 10-inch ring that also has different colors and different brightness levels. I got this for my Zoom calls, and then we quickly realized that we could also put it close to the piano and help get some better front lighting on whoever's making a video. Next, we upgraded to this 2-light system, 2 ring lights, which you can move around and put in the right place, and a holder for a cell phone right in the middle. And so when you turn it on, it gives you 2 sources of light, which you could put on your face and angle a certain way when making a video. Our last lighting upgrade was this rather large lamp, which puts out a great degree of light. It takes up a lot more space in the room, but it really is a powerful light source. It has a tall tripod, a much bigger light ring, so it offers a diffuse light, and it has everything from very dim light all the way up to very bright light, and then we can have very warm light all the way to a very cool light. So it gives all of those options. We also found that we can put this in a fairly reasonable size bag and bring it to a location to have some better lighting on a shoot. And this bigger light cost us $120, but it seems to have been a great investment considering how powerful it is and the kind of options it gives us in the space. The first light I showed, the single light, was about, I think, $25 on Amazon, and the second one was probably $40 to $50 on Amazon. All of them have been great, relatively affordable investments in helping us get better light in this space. Find a way to upgrade your lighting. Get your foreground looking better. So if I put this back in front of me, you'll already see that that makes a big difference in how it's lighting up my face. So work on lighting first. The first thing you'll want to do with your phone is to get some sort of a tripod or holder that will put your phone in the ideal spot and hold it steady. You could, of course, do this with small, versatile tripods, which you could wrap around the back of a chair or a music stand. But you might also find that having something with your lighting that holds a phone, as this does,
is really sort of effective because now you can accomplish two things at the same time. So using this ring light, we put the phone in the middle. We turn on the two lights, and then we put it where we want to capture ourselves talking or playing. So for instance, if I was going to do a little introductory video for some sort of a performance, then I could put the phone here with the two lights and I'd have a pretty nice shot. Here we are recording with my phone. I have the two ring lights on either side lighting up my face, and then I have my lamp over here lighting up the background. And it's a pretty nice shot. I can easily move it around where I want, get whatever angle I want, and just very easy to use. Totally intuitive. When we think about framing our shot, you want to decide if you're talking and you want more of a close-in shot, or if you're performing and you want more of a full shot or a torso shot. It will a little bit have to do with what you have in the room, what's going to make a good frame, and what the purpose of the video is. I do recommend to make sure that you don't have too much room above your head. It just doesn't look very natural. You know, having a shot where your head is just the lower portion of the shot is not what is most common. It doesn't make for a nice framed image. Similarly, you want to make sure that you're not chopping off the top of your head. The worst would be something like that. So always try to figure out where your head is. Take time to shoot a test, watch it to make sure. And sometimes you might even take a moment to take the video off of your phone, put it onto your computer so you can see it on a bigger screen. If you're new to this, taking extra time to set up your shots will pay off a lot for the quality of your videos. The second thing to upgrade is your sound. Now, recording the spoken voice is very different than recording music. For speaking, you want to get the microphone very close to your mouth. In this case, I'm using a lapel mic. They become very affordable, and you can buy them in all kinds of configurations, so they could either plug in directly to your computer, directly to your phone. There are many cameras where you could plug this mic directly into the camera, or if you were getting very sophisticated, you could record your lapel mic into a separate recorder, like the Zoom recorders, and then use that sound to merge it with the video later. I have a lapel mic here that I purchased for my phone. So it's a simple lapel mic, and on the other end, it has a USB-C connection, and I plug it right into my phone, and it just works automatically. I don't have to have any technical knowledge to get the phone talking with the lapel mic. The second microphone that you want to look at is what's good for music. These mics maybe won't do a bad job for music, but they're not meant for it at all. Now, many people have purchased, I guess, what's called the Blue Yeti, and this is a microphone that you could actually use for speaking, and you might put it on your desk or somewhere rather close to you, but you could also use it for music and just simply put it further away. There are much better microphones that are in the $200 or less that are built more for music. So when you're buying microphones, you want to figure out what is your primary use, what price budget do you have, and what's going to make the most sense with the equipment you're plugging it into. But this Blue Yeti has a regular USB adapter, so you can plug it right into your laptop and it should work automatically. You also could put an adapter on it and plug it into your phone. Now I'm recording with an inexpensive lapel mic I just bought so that I could plug it directly into my phone. This means that your video is created with the good audio. It makes quite a difference. For comparison, here is the sound using the microphone in the phone itself. While it's not bad, and you could do quite a bit with that, it is a substantial upgrade to use a lapel mic that plugs right into the phone. Now I'm recording with the Blue Yeti. This is a microphone that has some versatility. If you put it close, it's perfect for speaking, but you can put it further away and it could be great for playing, or it could be great for a combination of playing and speaking. My wife, pianist Sing-Ai Shu, will offer a short demonstration of the kind of audio you can get from the phone without an external microphone and the kind of audio you can get when you plug in a microphone like the Blue Yeti. Remember that for about $200, you can get something even better that you can plug right into your phone for recording. And if you want to go into high fidelity, there are all kinds of microphones that go above that. But for $100 to $200, you can get something quite good.
Now we're going to plug in the Blue Yeti, which can plug right into a phone, and the phone will recognize it automatically. To give one more demonstration of something you can do on your own, my wife, pianist Sing Ai Shu, had the opportunity to go to a lovely venue to record a little bit of music recently. All on her own, she carried our large ring light and then the portable phone and an external microphone. In this case, we have a little handheld Zoom recorder that for her is very easy to use. She actually recorded the concert with this, plugged it directly into the phone, and got both a really nice visual and a pretty good audio. When she wanted to make an introduction, she used it up close, kept it just out of the frame so that she had both good audio for the speaking, and then the same microphone was placed in a nice location to get good audio for the performance.
This is the Prelude in G, Opus 32, number 5, by Rachmaninoff.
So Wei, let's say that somebody has invested in a good phone.
Yep.
Maybe they've even invested in a microphone that they can plug into that phone so they're getting even better audio, but they're basically focusing on just a single camera shot and audio that already is being merged together. Now they want to begin to do some basic editing. Maybe they want to add in an introduction, right, or they want to edit a little bit from this performance and a little bit from that. Where would people start with editing software on the most basic level?
Yeah, so I think that's a very good question. I think if you're on a Mac, you should probably just start with iMovie.
iMovie. It comes free with all Mac.
I believe it comes free.
Operating system.
Right. And on Windows, since you don't have the iMovie, you could be using Adobe Premiere's Element version.
Okay.
You don't want to go to the Pro version for now because just the learning curve takes a long time.
So just to reiterate, iMovie is a great starting point.
Right.
I do wonder if there are simple, do you know if on the Windows platform if there's basic editing software before you get to Premiere?
Yeah, I could be wrong. I think there's a default version too. There's a Movie Maker or something. This is by Microsoft. I think anything that's we call a linear editing software that you can load in your content and trim it and crop it. Yeah, I believe every system comes with default.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there should be basic editing software built in with whatever operating system you have on your computer that you can take footage from your phone, connect it to your computer, move it over, and do some basic editing on it.
Right. And in Android's case, yes, you can just connect your USB and you can load the movies directly to your computer. In iPhone's case, it's a little bit more complicated. Sometimes it doesn't load that way. You have to download from your iCloud, basically.
And I think that all phones also have basic editing features built in.
It does.
You can trim a clip. I don't know if you can get super advanced, and it's not so much the interface that's comfortable for that, but it is available.
It is available. It just takes a little bit more time to navigate.
Wei, let's talk about going to the next level. I think once you've gotten very comfortable with a single camera shot, using your phone, getting some better audio, getting good lighting, the next level would be using two cameras or two angles to your video shoot. Walk us through the basics of how that works.
So the basics of how you shoot a multicam production, it's actually quite simple. You just record on multiple cameras, but you just have to make sure you have a synchronization point. Either it's a loud clap where you just say the take number, you have to have what's called a reference point.
Okay.
So
wait, let's slow down.
Yeah.
The reference point is an audio event, a clap, a sharp sound that you can easily see the waveform in the editing and line it up manually.
Sure, or a visual reference.
Visual reference could work as well.
You can see where the frames are.
Okay.
The things to watch out is you want to make sure your devices are shooting on the same frame per second.
Okay.
You don't want to be shooting one at 30, one at 24. That's going to create a problem in the post-productions. And also you want to have similar color, right? You don't want to have the colors too different from camera to camera. So you want to make sure your white balance are set the same.
If you're going to the level of doing 2 cameras, you want to begin to learn about some of these more advanced features, like getting the white balance set the same,
right?
Making sure that you're creating a visual or audio editing point so that what you can do in the editing software is line up those 2 videos, and then you would cut and go back and forth between the 2.
Right, you can cut in between 2 cameras or more than 2 cameras, but it's the same concepts.
Now, the advantage of doing a 2-camera shot is that it's just a more compelling video image in the end.
Right.
It's more engaging and more interesting. I wonder if the people watching this have really paid attention to when they're only seeing a single camera versus when they're seeing 3 cameras. And if you're even sort of aware of how many cameras might be involved. For young concert artists, when we do a performance shoot, we work with Wei, 3 cameras is the minimum that we're trying to get to.
That's right.
And then Wei likes us, he knows we like fancy stuff, so sometimes he's upping it to 4 cameras. 3 cameras is really compelling, but even 2 cameras. If you had 2 cameras, what would you try to do for the camera angles to make it interesting?
Yeah, so I think if you have 2 cameras, what you could do is just have a wide shot. That's your what we call main shot, right? And then you can have the secondary shot, generally would be a zoom shot.
Okay.
Be a close-up on the performer.
So if we're looking at the piano right here,
Right.
we could have a close-up of the performer and then something that's a bit further away. And of course, you want to work generally to make sure that the cameras are not in the shot,
Right.
that this camera's not in that camera's shot and vice versa. So again, whenever you're getting something set up, you need to leave enough time to look at the footage. Do a little test footage, look at each camera and make sure that it looks good and that the framing is good.
Right, I think preparation is the most important. If you're recording yourself, you're giving yourself 1 hour recording time. If you're doing this for the first time, you should at least have 2 hours just to test it.
So something else that is really critical here is if you're working with 2 cameras, you at this point really want to have a separate device which is capturing the audio.
Correct. There is not one single device that's being invented can record high definition video and high definition audio at the same time. They must be recorded separately and synced in the post-production.
So when you're going to the next level, after the single shot with a phone, a good phone, the next level is to get both good video and good audio, but do that separately.
Correct. And a lot of musicians use a Zoom device, or Zoom, a Tascam, a Roland, those portable recorders. And they're great because they actually create a really good sound if you place them correctly.
So what you're going to end up with, if you have 2 cameras and a separate microphone, is an audio track, which might be a WAV file,
right,
and then 2 video tracks. So just to help people understand, in the editing, you're taking these 3 files and trying to get them to line up over each other so that they're at the exact same moment in time from the recording. And then you're using the good audio and then switching back and forth between the different video shots.
Right. The audios from the cameras, we call them scratch audio. They're really just for one purpose, is to line up where the starting point is.
That's a great point. You've got to record the audio in each camera so that it helps you match up the audio and the shot from the good audio. Graduating from a single camera to a 2-camera shoot or a multi-cam shoot is a big step. But curiously, during the pandemic, I've actually known a number of musicians that decided to take that on. And so I do want to say that for the people that enjoy some technology, enjoy cameras and some audio recording, you absolutely can get there.
Yeah, I mean, and one thing about electronics these days are they're much cheaper than even 2-3 years ago. So with a very, very simple setup, you can get a very good result out of it.
Yeah, you were actually suggesting to me earlier that somebody with an iPhone and an iPad already has 2 cameras.
Right, and because iPhone and iPad are made by the same manufacturer, they have the same sensors, same cameras in there too.
To recap, you want to match the white balance between your different cameras. You want to have good audio that's separate from the cameras, but record the audio in the camera so you can match it in post-production. And you want to make sure that the frame rates are perfectly matched on the cameras.
Yeah, and to add one thing on top of that is, like what I said, if you can get the same brand, go for that, because it's going to come out similar look.
Let's talk very briefly about video editing software. We've already mentioned that iMovie is a great starting point. There should be something comparable on the Windows platform. It seems like there's a great gap between entry-level software and the stuff that professionals use. Is that correct?
Right. Unfortunately, there's nothing in the middle.
So one of the most popular editing software programs is Adobe Premiere.
Adobe Premiere, that's right. It's a suite. If you have an EDU account, you can get a discount.
An EDU, an educational account.
Right.
Right. To get Adobe Premiere, it's a subscription basis. It's not cheap. And unfortunately, this is a bit of software with a very steep learning curve.
Yeah, once you open the software, just the interface itself, it takes some time to understand what things mean and where they are.
It is intimidating. It gives you a ton of control and options, and it's meant for people that actually have giant editing setups at home.
Right.
So you might begin with Premiere Elements, which is a little more basic version of Premiere.
Right. It's an entry-level software in the Adobe Suite family. It's not as hard to use as the Premiere Pro, but it will get you the basic functions. And for a beginner or individual artist, it's more than enough.
If you do want to get into the video editing side of things, I highly recommend taking an online course. Skillshare has a lot of courses. There's a lot of videos and tutorials available on YouTube and other platforms, but making an upfront investment of 4 or 5 hours or even more will get you a much better start.
Right, and I learned how to do video editings online. Nobody taught me, and I think one of the tricks that I learned throughout the way is you have to make notes while you're learning this online, because if you watch 5 hours, you probably forget about the first 4 hours by the 5th hour. So make a very good note, and especially with shortcuts and stuff like that, it will help you in the long run.
Start simply, start with a small goal, have a little project, do it in the summer month when things are quieter, and just start building what you're capable of doing. How do you budget for this stuff?
That's a very good question, I think. I think you should set a price point. Don't budget yourself based on the quality of the content you want to produce, but based on how much money you can actually set aside to buy stuff. For example, if you have $1,000 to spend, then that's how you're going to budget. If you have $5,000, then you may be able to open up your world of creativity a little bit more, but always set on how much money you can actually set aside.
And if you do have $1,000, you want to look at all the things you need. Do you need a tripod?
Right.
Do you need lighting? Do you need some cables, rechargeable batteries, extra batteries? The camera? Do you need audio equipment? But you could get really good setups using a phone and $100. And then if you had $1,000 and you were getting a camera and audio stuff, you could still get that accomplished, but you'd have to be very sort of thoughtful in pricing it all out.
Right, and also don't get into the trap of, like what you just said, there are accessories involved in productions. So if you have a budget of $2,000 and you spend $2,000 buying only the camera and you forget about the tripod, that's going to add on, and it's going to cause a problem because you cannot back off anymore. You're already into the game, so you keep on adding money, and that becomes a very problematic situation.
When you are ready to invest in some better equipment, establishing a budget,
right,
and then beginning to price things out, looking at Amazon or Sweetwater, both websites that have a lot of equipment. And this is a moment where you want to go to your friends that actually have more technical knowledge,
right,
and get their feedback. It's a little bit challenging to recommend cameras because new cameras come out every month. The equipment is always changing, but you can easily Google things. What's the best $500 camera to buy? And there'll be articles, blog posts that come up right away.
Right, and one thing also to keep in mind is what you're buying, is it future-proof, right? How many years can this last? With the current technology and around entry-level products, it can last you 2 to 3 years easily.
It's definitely a great investment to buy better equipment,
Right.
learn how to use it. It's an investment of money, it's an investment of time, it's an investment of knowing what your goals are for the technology, what are the things you want to do, and finding the right tools to get that done. But when we talk about some of these prices, $750, you could easily spend $2,000 on a camera or $10,000 on a camera. It's important to think of it as an investment in your career and the content that you want to produce, how you want to interact with your audience, the content you want to produce that you hope is evergreen, that looks good, so that 3 years from now, when we're well past this pandemic, the content still looks okay.
Right, I agree. And don't ever get into the pricing game where you think the more money you spend, the better the quality you're going to produce. It's really about the methods.
The methods and making sure that it's meeting the needs that you specifically have.
Exactly.
Wei, something that's really terrific is that upping your level on the audio actually costs a lot less than upping your level on the video.
Yeah.
At this moment in time, there's a whole array of products that you can buy to make great audio recording that's meant to be mobile, run off batteries, and work in any number of different situations.
Yeah, and this is the product we were just talking about, the Zoom portable recorder.
So Zoom is a company that, different than the Zoom that does the video
has
conferencing.
nothing to do with the Zoom conferencing.
But Zoom recording devices have been around for a long time, and they have everything from, let's say, a $50 device that you can put in a pocketbook,
Right.
to this is the Zoom H6, and it has these interchangeable microphones that go right on top. So this is the basic one that has what we call a 2-point stereo mic, and it has 2 different recording patterns, and you could use this to get a very good recording in almost any room.
Right, and it's very portable. It's battery power. You don't need to find a power source. And also on the side, as you can see, this is the professional XLR connectors, meaning this is future-proof. If you want to have a professional microphone, you can actually connect to this.
So that's right. This recorder has a microphone that pops on the top, but then it has 2 XLR inputs on each side, so you can actually use this to do 6-track recording
Yes.
on location.
Right.
And if you buy this now and in 2 years want to really get to $1,000 microphones, you can actually record with this.
Yeah.
It happened to have, I brought my other attachable microphone.
Fancy microphone.
So this is fits right on the top. This is what we would call as a shotgun microphone.
Right.
What's the point of a shotgun microphone?
Well, so this is very directional. This is great for interviews, right? So it will record literally at the direction you're pointing at. It will eliminate the noises around it.
I've actually used this in some of my own video shooting work with the YCA artists because I've had cameras that were getting wide angles, so I didn't want to get the recording device, audio recording device, too close, and I was able to move this out of the shot further back and got pretty clear audio.
Yeah, and the shotgun mic is what used in all the film world or the commercial world. All the dialogues are recorded on the shotguns as well.
So the beautiful thing for me about this Zoom audio recording unit is not only does it have a ton of features and a lot of flexibility, but I take it with me when I travel quite frequently. It's very mobile.
Yeah, and it records on SD cards, right?
Yep, SD card pops right in the side, and it's good to go. It's just terrific. But that's another thing that I wanted to mention is when you're investing in equipment, you want to think about where you're going to use it.
Right.
It's one thing during the pandemic to focus on recording at home, upping the game there, buying some tripods, some lights, and so forth. But in the long run, it may be very useful to have equipment you can take with you. You know, we have the Sony we were just looking at. This is about as compact as it gets considering all of the power that this has. So these 2 devices, and then you could have,
A GoPro.
I'm going to take my GoPro off of this, but this is a very flexible portable tripod that you could put on a tabletop, or you could even sort of grip onto the back of a chair. You know, this with a camera, and you might need a second tripod for the audio device, and suddenly you have a very mobile recording unit.
Right, and I think this thing is very versatile. You can actually wrap this around the music stand.
You could put it on a music stand, you could put it on a banister,
Right.
You could put it on a tree limb. I've done all of those things. It's relatively lightweight. I don't remember the price, but it's probably $30, $40 on Amazon. This is a similar one. We call this a Gorilla Pod. It's a little bit of an older model of the same kind of thing. And it's meant to hold up to 5 pounds and to grip onto any number of things that could hold a camera in place.
Right, right.
But, you know, when you think about what your needs are, what your goals are, you want to evaluate where you want to use it, what you want to accomplish, what your budget is, and then you want to invest and learn how to use that equipment well.
Yeah, and with all the equipments we're talking about today, you know, there are tons of YouTube reviews. I think before you're committing to buy anything, you should definitely look over a couple of reviews just to see if that's the right equipment for you.
And then when you do make a purchase, go right back to YouTube and watch a 20-minute video on how to use it.
Right.
You know, every bit of equipment that's out there right now has YouTube tutorials on how to use it, and then it has more advanced videos if you want to get into more advanced features. Wei, thank you so much for talking with us today. And if people didn't catch it at the beginning, we are recording in Skillman Music Recording Studios, which you created how many years ago?
I'll say this started about 4.5 years ago.
4.5 years ago.
Yeah.
And this is a space in Brooklyn where artists can book time and actually come in to do higher end recording.
Yes, we do all type of recording sessions, from just hourly recording, one camera shots, to a multicam production. We also do broadcast here, so we have this beautiful space that's ready to go live anytime.
Where can people find out more about the studio?
Go onto our website at skillmanmusic.com, and we should have everything listed over there.
Wei is also very active in recording on location, both live stream and pre-recording. Where can they reach you? Just through the same website?
Same website. And you know, it's been a great pleasure collaborating with YCA for the past 5 years or so. You know, I've produced many of the YCA's great contents, and I hope to more collaboration in the future.
Absolutely. Wei, thank you so much.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you, Wei, for the discussion today. I hope you will all join us next Tuesday when Metropolitan Opera Orchestra trombonist Weston Sprott, who is also the Dean of Juilliard Pre-College, will host a panel discussion on how to move the needle on issues of inclusion in classical music.